Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. This is another fixture in our Sunday Minisode series where I talk to you about your ghost stories. For this Minisode, I spoke to Eric. If you're a frequent listener, you may remember Eric from a previous Minisode earlier this season. Eric told me another ghost story from a time when he was living in Tennessee. Here's the call.
Hello?
Hello, is this Eric?
It is.
Hi, Eric. This is Sarah from Laughing in the Dark. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Long time no talk.
Exactly.
So, for listeners, you've called before earlier this same season, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So, let's fill in listeners on what your call was earlier this season. If you listen every week, what stood out to me was the call, from your call was your wife. She was my favorite part of your entire call.
Well, I told her about that I was doing this again, and she said, well, you're on your own with that one because, she wasn't involved in this story, so she's okay with that.
Okay.
She had enough with the one ghost thing,
She's
so,
like, you told the entire...
She
She was like, you told the entire world that I'm an alcoholic? And you're like, babe, no.
No, it just said she had a really big glass of wine.
Yeah. And she was like, oh my God. Were you in trouble?
Considering the circumstances of that, I think it was justified.
I think it's beyond justified. I loved it.
Yeah, she's not real big on the ghosts, so yeah, I think one story involving her was plenty.
Yeah, okay, great. How's she doing, by the way? She's doing good?
Oh, she's doing great. We just got a new puppy, so she's up there playing with her right now.
Oh, very, very cute. What kind of puppy?
A little Newfoundland.
Oh, very cute.
Gonna be a monster dog, yeah.
But, I mean, right now, I'm sure it's a little fluff. Little baby.
Yeah, she's only 25 pounds now, but they think she's going to be like 140 pounds.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay,
we'll have to teach her how to ghost hunt.
Well, yeah, by now, absolutely. So set the scene for me. So the first story you had for me, that had to be your first ever encounter with the paranormal, and so
yeah, it was, and it was something that that I never believed in. I don't think my wife believed in it much. And then, of course, obviously, we experienced stuff that we couldn't explain. So I thought, oh my gosh, maybe there is something to this.
I guess this happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was in Franklin, Tennessee, which is just south of Nashville. And this one, Jill and I used to own a house in, Old Hickory, Tennessee, which is just kind of like a little suburb of Nashville. And it's kind of a historic community there. I think over 100 years ago, there was a DuPont plant, which I think some of it's still there. They originally were making things for gunpowder, stuff like that, for the First World War. And it had gone at one point. Again, Old Hickory's kind of like a little suburb of Nashville, but at the time, apparently that little area, they brought in over like 100,000 people were working and living there. And it became like its own, obviously like a little city. And they would build these houses, basically like the old Sears Roebuck catalog houses. They came in kits. And my understanding was they would drop these houses. They would put one kit on each piece of land. And in 8 hours, they would build one house.
Whoa,
and
in 8
so
hours.
The house that
That's
we had,
wild.
all these houses were built. Yeah, it's pretty crazy how they did that. And all these houses were built in and around 1918, including the house that we had. And
wait a minute. So you're saying you had a house that was built in 1918, and it only took them 8 hours to put it together, and it stayed up that long?
Yeah, all of them. There's so many of those old houses. The whole little community we lived in, there were so many old houses there. And
Like you would
it
think
was
the
kind of
quality
interesting
would
because
be compromised with how low the time is to put it together. That's crazy.
you would think, yeah. Well, my understanding of it though was they essentially had like a little army that came in and built each house.
Oh.
And so they would spend like one day and put this entire house up, and then the next day they go to another house and put it up.
Wow.
And a lot of it's prefab stuff, so a lot of it was already made ahead of time, ready to go.
Right.
But I think things were made better back then too. But
Yeah.
So it's so there. One thing that's interesting about that neighborhood is it was on Old Hickory Lake. And the closer you got to the water, the bigger the houses got, because that you could tell like what somebody's job was at the plant based on the size of their house and where their proximity to the lake. So like obviously the bosses and things like that. There are some huge houses, 101-year-old houses there that are massive, and we had one we were one street off of the lake. So ours was not a huge house, but it wasn't a small one either. And it was great. And one thing that my wife kind of laughs at me about is I love how old houses, we both do, but I love like a good creepy basement.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is, but I just love a good creepy basement. And this house had one.
Sure.
And it was, I'd go down there and work out, and she never really spent a lot of time down there, but I did. That was my little man cave, I guess, literally.
Yeah.
And we had moved from Nashville up to Connecticut. We spent a year in Connecticut, and before moving here to Oregon. And when I had rented our house to a friend of mine, when she was done renting it, we were going to get it ready to rent again. And so I had come down from Connecticut to, we still had some furniture and things in the house upstairs that I wanted to put down in that basement because we were going to lock it all up so nobody could have access to it. I did this over the period of like a week, I guess it was. And one day when I was down there, again, an old historic neighborhood, things like that. I'm moving furniture down in the basement and moving some boxes around and whatever. And, you get that feeling sometimes like, obviously there's somebody standing there, kind of like out of your peripheral vision, you kind of catch something.
Sure.
And I'm bent over putting stuff into a box, and I look over and there's a guy standing there.
Oh, you saw him.
Now, again, I'm the only person working on this house. The doors were locked. There was nobody around. It's the middle of the afternoon. And I look over and I see this guy. He looked like maybe, I would say, 5'7", 5'8", not a real tall guy. Dark hair, had a mustache, looked to be wearing like a light gray colored suit, but obviously not like contemporary style. And he was just sitting there watching. And it was one of those things that was weird because, sometimes you think, oh, you'd be scared or, maybe even be mad if somebody's in your house or something like that. But it was weird to me because, I didn't feel any of those things. It was just kind of like, okay, that's, strange.
Yeah.
And one of the craziest things about it for me was I could see him blinking.
Him blinking?
Man, that's one thing that stood out to me is he would blink. And
so it's not like it was just like a solid figure just standing there. It was like someone.
Yeah, I mean, he looked just like a person was just standing there.
And he was blinking.
It was solid. You couldn't see through him or anything like that. It was really strange.
So do you mean he was blinking? Did it seem like he was trying to communicate something through blinking, or was it just like his eyes just got tired, so he was blinking while he was standing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, like if you or I were just standing there, like, periodically you're going to blink.
Right.
And that's kind of how it was. Yeah, it didn't seem like he was, like anything else was going on with it.
So you saw him for an extended amount of time. It's not like it was a flash and then you turned around and he was gone.
Oh, he was probably there for a good 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
And I stood there and I remember stood things come out of my mouth sometimes. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. But I just looked at him and I said, "Hey, man." And he just kind of sat. And then, like I said, after about maybe 30 seconds or however long it was, he just kind of faded out and he was gone.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that's not something you see every day.
Right.
And so what was interesting is the next day I was down there in this basement, basically in the same spot. It was a pretty good sized basement too, but I'm basically standing in that same spot, again, moving stuff around, whatever I was doing, and didn't see anything, but I felt somebody touch my arm.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's that feeling like, I mean, you know, like what a hand feels like on your arm. That's what it felt like.
Right.
And the thing is, I didn't see anything, but I could look down and it's like somebody was poking my arm with their finger because you could even see the indentation in my skin from where somebody was poking me.
Oh, yeah. And this is in the same basement?
And I was like, what? Yeah, creepy little basement. And I thought, what the heck is this? Yeah, that one kind of weirded me out a little bit. I'm like, okay.
Did that one feel like it was also a man? Like it could have been the same spirit? Or did it feel like it could have been someone else?
No, it felt like it was probably that, like a man was doing that.
The same guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the feeling I got from it. So,
and isn't that weird how weird. It's so bizarre how you can feel the type of, like for that, it's really just someone's poking you, but you knew it didn't feel like a woman. It didn't feel like a child. It felt like a man is poking you. Isn't it weird how you just know intuitively?
Well, and one of the reasons I say that I think it was a man, even though the person I saw was kind of short, is, where it was up on my arm, because I'm 6'7", and so where it was on my arm was kind of high up. So either somebody was really reaching, or it was, men typically are taller. So, it felt like somebody who was not that much, not a whole lot shorter than I am to be able to reach up to, because it was kind of close to my shoulder.
Yeah.
And with the force, it felt like it wasn't like somebody reaching it. Again, like you can just kind of tell from the way they're pushing. It's not like somebody's reaching up to do it. It's kind of like it was just coming straight across.
Right.
So it was interesting.
And so you said like sorry, I'm like kind of dissecting this. So when you saw that guy, when you actually physically saw him, you said you didn't have any bad feelings at all. Did it seem like he was just kind of regarding you as well? Like he was noticing that you were there?
Yeah. Yeah, it was almost like, kind of like I said, I had that feeling of like, oh, hey, man.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the look on his face was basically the same, like, oh, okay, you're here. What are you doing?
Wow.
It kind of inquisitive as well.
Really?
And I remember a friend of mine joked and said that maybe he's in a different time period and he thinks he's seeing stuff.
Seriously, I've had that thought before too. Like it's almost like overlapping planes of like time or something. That person, like especially with him coming over and poking you, it's like there's the one idea of like maybe there's like almost a traditional idea of a ghost that like he's dead. And maybe he's now realizing that he's dead and he's standing there and he's like, wait, there's a person here. I wonder if they can see me. And when you responded to him, he was probably like, oh my God, like this guy can see me. And then he comes over and tries to poke you. He's like, this is real. This is like really happening.
Yeah.
Or
he's seeing if I'm real. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. There's that other, like the other idea is the idea that like he's living in his time and it's in the exact same physical location, but in another time. So you appear to him like a ghost.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. And like I said, the strangest part was, it again, even when this thing was, it was a freaky thing to feel somebody poking my arm, obviously when I'm supposed to be in this house by myself.
Right.
But again, it wasn't like a scary thing. It was just kind of like what the heck is going on here?
Yeah.
And to see the skin, like the indentation of the skin was like the weirdest thing.
I bet. Yeah.
So I thought, oh, yes. Cause I'm thinking, something's poking my arm. I don't know what it is, but I'm not doing that to myself.
Cause it's like validating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what was funny is that, again, my wife we were living in Connecticut, so she was up there in Connecticut at the time I was doing this. And when I called her and I told her about this, we were planning on selling that house anyway, and so that kind of confirmed it for her.
She's like, great.
Yeah, we're not going. She's like, we're not going back to that house.
Right. She's like already pouring like a whole bottle of wine. She's like, oh.
She's going, yeah, it's okay. I'm on the way to the liquor store. More wine. I can't
like,
handle me more ghost stories here.
Throwing wine bottles behind her. Like, how many of these do we have left? Like, just losing it. Oh my God, that's super funny.
Never going back to Tennessee again. Too many ghosts.
And she's like, no, this whole state's just fucked. We're done.
Yeah, just, we need a fresh start.
We need to start over. Let's go to Oregon. There's no ghosts out there.
Yeah, clearly there's not going to be a ghost out in Oregon.
Definitely not.
Who would think of that?
The Oregon Trail, who even cares? Grapes of what?
Yeah, I mean,
Whatever.
City of Portland has ghosts? I don't think so.
No, definitely not.
But, yeah, it was funny because, like I told my neighbor about it, who lived in that neighborhood for a long time. He has one of those really big houses across the street from us that, like one of the managers had like 100 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And his house has an even creepier basement, and it's huge. And, he said he's seen stuff in there all the time. And he never tells his wife because, he loves his house. And he said if he told his wife would want to immediately sell the house.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm so glad I can tell you about this because I've never been able to tell anybody all my ghost stories in my neighborhood.
Oh my God.
He said he's seen a bunch of stuff. He said, but I've never been able to tell anybody because he said, he said, first of all, most people don't believe you. And he said, second of all, his wife didn't want to hear it. So he like unloaded on me with all these times he saw stuff. So, and another thing too was interesting is that at the time this happened, the next door neighbor was doing a lot of construction on her house. And she had told me she saw somebody in her house one time. It sort of kind of matched the description of what I saw. And so we joked and said, well, maybe all the construction you're doing drove him over to my house now. While they'll say he don't feel comfortable in his house being remodeled, so he decided to go next door and bug the neighbors. But, apparently some of those, there have been several sightings and things of people experiencing stuff in the neighborhood. Because, like I said, it's a pretty historic area and a lot of history to it. A lot of cool old houses. So
yeah,
I can definitely see that being a place where you would have like a good ghost story.
yeah. Especially like the old like mansion in the neighborhood that I would imagine.
Yeah, and some of those old houses too are like, they're just like something like, what you would think of when you think of like a haunted house or something like that. There are a few that really look like that.
Right.
Kind of almost Gothic looking and, really huge, tall houses. So, I definitely could see that happening in there.
I love Gothic architecture, like old churches. Oh, they're so beautiful. But homes like that, amazing. Good for him. Good for that guy. That guy's doing all right, huh? Man, good for him.
He's constantly working on his house, and so he goes. He stays in his basement all the time. And he said he's seen stuff and heard stuff, and things have been moved around, and he knows no one else moved it,
right?
Because he and his wife and his son never go in the basement, so he knows I didn't move it. So, yeah.
Man, can you imagine like doing so well in your life that you afford this old mansion? And not only afford it, but you're continuing to like renovate it and make it even nicer all the time. Like you are doing all right. And your family won't even go through half the house because they're afraid of it. I can't even imagine. It's like, wow.
Yeah, all this history that you're living in, and they're like, we're good.
You're just like, I have worked my ass off my whole life to live in this haunted ass house, and you guys don't even appreciate it.
Y'all don't even want to share some ghosts with me.
Come on now. Like, what did I work this hard for? I feel like that's going to be me.
When we were getting ready to sell the house too, the realtor that we used is a friend of ours, and I jokingly told him, I said, we probably don't need to mention the ghost in the listing, do we? He goes, no. I said, most people probably don't want to hear that. He said, some people might be drawn to it, but probably most people won't be. So,
right.
We omitted that from the description of the home. But
I used to think
was,
when I was younger, I used to think that they had to disclose if a house was haunted when they were selling the house.
right.
For some, like, and I think that's one of those things that's kind of like a I don't want to say urban legend. That's not the right word for it, but it's like it's a mistaken belief that I think a lot of people that are interested in the paranormal have, that they're like, oh, they have to tell you if it's
Right.
haunted. But then I was like, it wasn't until like last year, I think, that I was thinking about it, and I was like, that makes no sense. Like, why would that be something that, like, unfortunately the place is haunted? Like, what? Like, that doesn't happen. There's no way to, like, measurably.
I have a friend of mine I used to work with in Nashville who, he and his wife bought a house there in that area, and there had been a murder committed in the house, and they didn't even know about that till like 2 years after owning the house.
Oh, really? Because that's something I thought they had to disclose. I thought they had to disclose if someone died in the house.
Somebody neglected to tell him that part. So,
whoa,
yeah, it's like,
so
okay,
see,
that's what I found out.
But that's probably
and he was in law enforcement too. That was the funny part about it.
Wow. He's like, oh, I just didn't pay attention. Well, and that's the other thing that, like, see, that's something that I thought up until this moment. Like, I thought that they had to at least disclose if not a murder, if any death occurred in the house.
And I thought they did too, and maybe they have to, but somebody didn't, because
it could just be that
he and his
someone
wife found out there, like they're in the master bedroom. This what happened. He goes, I'm going to stay in this room where this happened. So
just like, oh, sorry, I just forgot. But no, I like I wonder if there's any like real estate agents listening that could write in and let us know what the fuck the truth is about this stuff, because it could be like it could be, first of all, it could be like regional, like one state you're allowed to, the other state you're not, or something.
Right.
And it also, because I think in New Orleans you can actually see online images of like house listings. You know, when you sell your house and you have to put that like thing in front of the house that's like for sale, like whatever.
Right.
In New Orleans, they will say haunted or not haunted on the bottom of it.
Oh,
like,
that's awesome.
Like, it has to be included in the thing. And like, maybe I'm misunderstanding, and maybe it's just like a cute gimmicky thing that they do sometimes, but I think it's like on all the locations that they sell, they have to put that. But I don't know. Like, if there's any real estate agents listening, please email me and let me know, because I'm so curious. Like, do you have to say if the place is haunted? I don't think that's the case. But do you have to say if someone was killed in the house or if they died in the house? Because how many times have you bought a house that someone died of natural causes? I'm sure that happens all the time. Like, you know.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time, yeah.
It's like, how are they going to just be like, okay, here's the track record of all the people that died in this house? Like, oh, what? Like, I don't know. I guess that, you know what I mean?
Maybe if it were natural, maybe they don't have to tell, but you would think it was like some sort of bad thing. Yeah, you might want to let people know. But
because it's like that classic horror movie thing where they're like, oh my God, this is a real bargain for this gorgeous old mansion. And then it's like, oh, it's haunted as hell.
There's got to be a reason why there's a reason why it's only $200,000.
They're just like, well, it's demon possessed, but other than that, like,
yeah, if you go in the basement, something will poke you in the arm.
Yeah, that's not that bad.
Some people would freak out. I told some people, oh my God, I would have had a heart attack.
I know. And it doesn't. I think that you and I are similar in that sense, because I saw a full body apparition the same as you, and it was that same reaction of just like, oh, okay, like what's happening?
Yeah.
And you're kind of regarding that person. But I think also sometimes people's imaginations get away from them. Like they think, oh, if that were me, I would have lost my fucking mind. And you're like, but you don't know how you would react until it happens.
Right.
Like, and there's also a lot to say about intuition. Like you can feel if someone has bad intentions towards you.
Right. Yeah, that was the thing. Like when I saw the guy standing there, I mean, literally, it was just like, oh, hey, what's going on? You know, and yeah, not once did I feel threatened or anything like that. So, yeah, it was weird. You could just tell right off the bat. It wasn't like he wasn't there to do anything bad.
Yeah.
So,
like he was just as shocked as you were.
And the thing that's weird to me too is, I remember not long after that happened, I actually thought about this because I had driven down from Connecticut to Tennessee, and so on the trip back, I remember driving, I was thinking about it, and I was a little bit kind of questioning myself because I'm like, did I really see what I saw? Did that really happen? And, but obviously I did. There's no way for me to ever prove to anyone that I saw it, but, I know what I saw, and it was just weird to me. And I'm not somebody who's going to make something like that up just for the shits and giggles. I just, it was just weird. But yeah, I kind of questioned myself on the drive back. I'm like, oh, okay. I actually saw somebody in the basement. And it was locked up tight and there was nobody else around. And, so it was a very strange, very surreal kind of experience though.
He's just blinking too. Like, so
nonchalant. You literally could see him blink. And it wasn't like excessive blinking or anything like that, but it's like, if you're talking to somebody, having a chat or, whatever, people blink from time to time. You got to clear your eyes or whatever. And he was doing that.
Yeah.
And I remember,
he's just like lightly coughing.
Like
I just picture him like lightly coughing into his hand, like rubbing the inside of his eye, just standing, just like totally chill.
Well, I just remember like he had like a light gray suit on.
Mm-hmm.
And a white, looked like a white shirt, but it was like one of those, not like a modern collar like men's shirts have, but like kind of that real just kind of flat, short, like collar thing that is, something that's reminiscent of like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was no tie on or anything like that, but he had like a gray, looked like a 3-button, gray suit coat, and just standing there. He's a short guy, like 5'7" or so. And it was weird. Yeah, he just stood there and he was looking at me and I was looking at him. And then after a while, he just kind of faded out and he was gone. And I just kind of thought, okay. And then, got back to work. So,
yeah.
So it was a weird thing.
Well, and also based on what he was wearing, he was probably not like one of the people building the house. Like it sounds like he would have been pretty well off. Maybe he was like the first owner of the house.
Yeah, it could be.
Can you imagine too? Like you're a really tall guy also. Like, can you imagine for him, what if he is living in the 1918 or whenever this house was built? And what if he is just standing in the basement, kind of just being like, okay, this is all set up. I think like we're just moving in. And he sees you and he's just like, what the fuck is happening?
Who is this in my house?
And you're just like in like basketball shorts, like, what's up, man? And he's like, what the fuck? Like, he's just not, he's like, what is going on? And like, he's telling people about it. And he's just like, this is going to sound crazy, fellas, but I
saw Bigfoot in my basement.
Right. No shit. Yeah. Do you have like a big beard too? It'd be perfect. He's just
no, I did not at the time. So yeah, I had like a goatee. That's about it. But, yeah, he's probably like, "What the heck was that?"
It's like there's a giant living in my home. I poked
and his friends
it,
were like,
guys.
Yeah, whatever.
He's like, no, I poked it. I know I'm not losing my goddamn mind.
Yeah,
I physically
it's real.
felt it.
I know what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like me. He's like maybe he's doing like his own podcast like 100 years ago. He's like, no, I'm telling you. I can't prove it, but it was there.
The equivalent of the podcast, like he's just sitting around a card table. Like I know, fellas, it sounds weird, but I'm just like, get out of town.
Oh, it was a very interesting. So when I told my wife about it, she goes, "Yep, that does it. We're not going back to that house."
Yeah, she's like, "I'm good." That's so weird. Like, because like for me, I feel like it seems almost like he was trying to communicate with you by like poking you. If it were me, right, I would be like, all right, we need to figure out how to talk to this guy. Like, he's clearly willing to communicate. Let's figure something out. Because I just want to know, is this guy actually living, but just living in another timeline that's overlapping with ours right now? Because, you know, the whole thing about, like, time is a flat circle and, like, whatever. Or is he, like, a dead ghost who's now, like, visiting this basement? Like, that's two totally different scenarios. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I would have wanted to chat.
Yeah, I kind of think too. Like if he had hung around longer, like, you know, what would I have asked him?
Yeah.
Hey, can I get you something to drink? You know,
Your wife is just filling up.
I probably would have turned into my dad and been like, hey, don't just stand there, grab some boxes and help me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
You're going to be in this house. You're going to help. You're going to do some work too, buddy.
Right. Yeah. You're not going to freeload here. I don't care if you're a creepy ghost from the 20th century. But damn
millennial ghost.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Your wife is just taking like just pictures, just like flower pots, just filling them up with bottles of wine, just like, all right. It's just like a full vase filled with like 4 bottles of wine. And she's like, all right, like, let's do it.
Yeah. Tell me the next story. Yeah. Tell me the next.
All right, let's go.
Like tires. You hear tires squealing on the road. It's like her trying to get to the liquor store as fast as possible.
She's like, I can't do
It's like, I need more supplies.
How many bottles of this do you have? You only have 11 bottles of Merlot? I can't do this. I can't do this.
I'm going to drive my car around back. Just start loading them in the back of the car.
No, you know what? I just need the barrel. Just give me the barrel. Oh, my God. That's so funny.
She's going to kill me. She's going, people are going to think I'm like some raging alcoholic.
No, I know. I'm going to get some hate mail from your wife. That's like, listen.
No, the funny thing, the part about joking about it makes it so funny is that my wife is like she'll have one glass of wine and then she's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. She's calling.
The ghost in that first story drove her to extremes.
Yeah.
So she can make a bottle of wine last like weeks. So that's what makes it. That to me is what makes it so funny. That's hilarious. That I just couldn't, I just didn't expect it when you said it. So I was just like, oh my God, that's exactly what I would be doing. That was, like I said, she made that whole first story because we literally were listening to those ghost tapes. She goes, all right, pause it. And she just got up and left the room. She didn't say where she was going. She came back with this huge glass of wine. She goes, okay, I'm ready.
See?
It was like comic relief for the whole thing.
Oh, my God.
That whole story was her reaction.
That was the best. That was so funny. Yeah, I hope she doesn't get offended. I just think it's the most hilarious thing ever.
She's got a great sense of humor. She'll think it's hilarious.
That's amazing.
We'll just give her a hard time.
Yeah. Well, God, I wonder if anyone's living in that house now in Tennessee that's just like, I've seen that fucking guy. Yeah, I've seen him.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is we sold it to a young couple, and I think they had just had a child, and I'm curious if they have seen anything or not. So I don't know them, so it's not like I could contact them and ask them, but it'd be interesting to see if they had.
I would just
seen anything down there.
I would say this is probably, I've done more than 50 minisodes on this show. And outside of this show, I've obviously heard other people telling me their ghost stories. I've watched a lot of shows about ghosts. And it seems like it's very rare to have a spirit that is willing to communicate with you. You know what I mean? That seems like they're trying to. So I feel like if someone does live in that house and someone is just like, I know what he's talking about. I've had that in our basement. Like they're talking about our basement. We're in Tennessee. This place was built 1918. Like all of it's lining up.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. First of all, immediately write us an email and just be like, this is nuts. Guess what? But
yeah, I'm in that house.
Right. Yeah. Like this is the ghost. Hi, I'm the ghost. That would be great. But the thing is like, if you have that, I would try to say, as long as it doesn't freak you out and you are interested in it, don't waste that opportunity. Like I feel like I would see it as an opportunity. Yeah. Like try to communicate with that spirit and see what you can get out of it, because this is the whole point of us all talking about this. I think the thing that draws people to the paranormal, besides, it's like creepy or it's like, interesting or whatever. But part of it is like, it's the unknown. We don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And to be able to communicate with someone on that other plane of existence is invaluable.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. It's just, it's like you said, it's, and people have like this, we always want to know everything. And so it's kind of like, okay, if I die, I want to know what's coming up next. So maybe this person has the answers for me.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And or if nothing else, I want to communicate to him and say, hey, why are you poking me? What's that about, dude?
Thanks for your call, Eric. It was great hearing from you again. Do you have a ghost story that you want to tell on Laughing in the Dark? Email us at litdarkpodcast@gmail.com or write to us in our Contact Us form on our website, litdarkpodcast.com. We may want to feature you on the show. As always, thanks so much for listening.